Well, today is the 31st of March 2016. We'll have an interview with Jason Adams. Mr. Adams, would like you to introduce yourself and give us your background as to whether you were born here in Paarl, and maybe give us your family background and so on. Yeah.
Alright, my name is Jason Benjamin Adams. It's actually a family name. My great-great-grandfather, he was a slave. He came from somewhere there near India, and he came as a slave on this farm. And then he got married here, also to a slave, but he could read and write, and his wife could also read and write. So he was a, what do you call it in Afrikaans, a koetsier, who drove the coach for this farmer. And when he was emancipated, he was given property. And and then my father was the grandson of this. So when I was born, I stayed on this property in Bergstedt. That was part of the grounds that he was given. So what I remember is what my father told me about it. And his mother still lived. And I was born there. I stayed there for 21 years. I grew up there on the slopes of Paarl Mountain, where you can see the mountain there. On the slopes, that's where I grew up, and that's where I played all these years. So I went to high school and matriculated here in Paarl. And those years, you could only go as a teacher or train as a carpenter or a postman. So my parents never worried how am I progressing at school. They never asked me, did you pass or whatever. They just accepted it and provided, and I had to do the rest. So I went to that year at the high school. We were 55 students in high school, in matric.
Which year was it?
1964, somewhere there, 64 or 65. But we were 11 in matric, and some of my best friends, they took Latin, the subject. But then I dropped Latin because it was after school. And I was very fond of girls. And so I didn't want to, sacrifice my afternoon walk for Latin. So I dropped Latin when I was in matric. And I took woodwork as exam subject. And at the end of the year, when the results came out of the 11, we were 55, and only 11 passed. And from the 11, I was the only Paarl boy that passed. The others were all hostelites, who were boarding somewhere. I was the only boy, and then there was about 6 girls that passed with me. So I had to go to Hewitt in Rollinson in Cape Town. But during the holidays, I worked at the Jones factory. When the people there at the factory heard that I had passed matric, they asked me, are you going to learn, as they said, for a principal? because usually after standard 8, you went teachers college, and now here's the first time after matric. Because I was the second matriculant at this high school. And So I went to Hewitt Training College. I went there in Rowland Street 2 years. And going there, I was the only boy from Paarl. So I had to find my way around, make friends. And this one, now he is too mild for me, and this one is a little too rough for me, so I left him. Until I met someone there from Fairgrove. He was Joe Daniels. And we've been friends ever since, about these years. So then I found myself in the second year, I had to go and teach now. So I applied for a post. I was unsuccessful. But then in April this year, I was sitting in a basket. And one of the ushers came to me. He said, there's someone to see you outside. Well, I thought he was joking. I said to him, all right, man, tell the person to come in. So here in the dark, this tall man came to me. He said, are you qualified? I said, yes. He said, you got a post? I said, no. You want a post? I said, where? He said, up in Steenkop in the Makkelei. How do I get there? I said, if you want a post, you can have a post and you can go with me right now. I'm going up there. So I went up and he went with me to our house in Berg Street. And my mother was there. And she says, now, who's this man? I said, Mama, I'm going with this man. I need to teach. So I packed my suitcase and he was advising me, take this, take that and that. And he said, what about your suit? Your black suit? I said, black suit? Yeah, we go to the dance. And so yeah, in my mind I pictured myself coming down the pathway from the house. Little headstay in front with my black suit, I'm going to the dance. Right, I went there. In the car, sorry, there were two other colleagues in the car as well. One was from Genadendal and one was from Cape Town, but I didn't know them. From there we went to Goedverwag to pick up another student, not student, another teacher. From there we went to Steenkop. And it was dark there. And during the night, as we traveled, I looked up. I didn't see trees, just see stones and long road. And then the principal said to us, listen, when you get to the school, you are all young teachers, but don't let on that you are novices. And he said to us, just keep yourself like onlookers. Right, we went there. And there was a house there, we stayed there. We had to find ourselves. And in this little place, there was no lights. Very few houses, it was those round sakhuise that they had in the Makkelei. From that, there's one shop, one cafe, and post only came in on Monday nights and Wednesdays and Fridays. And then we had to go down to the post office. And we helped the postmaster to sort the post. We only helped until we got what we wanted, those letters from home. Anyhow, there was no bar. We had to go 30 miles to Oakhead for a dope. And they couldn't even cash our checks there. But later on, we got an account there at the shop, and we opened the account for the 3 of us, 4 of us. Right, so whatever we bought, if I buy cigarettes, I buy for the 4 of us. Whatever anyone bought, it was like that. And at the end of the month, we shared the account. So I stayed there for 9 months. Yeah. And then I thought, I'm not going to stay here. I applied for another post, and I got the post in Tausriver. But then we left there, made some good friends there, but the people were very conservative there, and it's a little mission town. You can't have a party. If you want to be together for more than 3 people, you must have a permit, like a funeral or some prayer meeting. We established a rugby club there, and we first had to get permission from the board to have meetings. So I stayed there for 9 months, and when I came home in June, the first June holidays, my parents weren't here in Berg Street anymore. The group areas had moved them all. Luckily, I corresponded with them, and so I had an address to go to. But I had to go, come to the rug here to go and look, where is this street, where is that street, where is my parents? So we didn't stay there anymore. So I wasn't with the movie. So it didn't affect me as such that I had to move because I wasn't there. And so I stayed there, and then I went to Tausriver, toured there for 3 months, and came back, and then I met this woman who was here, what? Yeah. In fact, I met her long ago. We were traveling together to Cape Town every day, college. Then I got married, and I was teaching, working there in Paarl, at the joinery hardware business. I started there because you have a post.
So is that after you have taught in Tausriver?
Yeah, after I taught in Tausriver. I went to a school in Cape Town near the fish market.
Yes.
And there's this fish market there. At some primary school, I can't now remember the name. I know the principal was Mr. Skell. I went to teach there in Cape Town for 3 months. Then I was without the post again. And then my grandfather took ill. I was married already. My grandfather took ill. And then I went to teach in his place in the school for 3 months. Then I got a post in Springbok. Right. So I went there, taught in a primary school. Now those days the schools were all run by the churches, DRC mostly. This was a DRC school. So I went there and boarding in Springbok. And because it was a DRC school, I thought it's only right that I joined the DRC church because I was teaching there. So I taught them woodwork. But my whole life that I was teaching, I was mostly teaching woodwork. In Steinkop, I taught woodwork at high school, from standard 7 that time to 10. And the primary school was just next door. And so those kids also came over. I taught woodwork there and art. In Tausriver, I taught art there and woodwork. And when I went to Springbok, I also taught woodwork there and then maths. So I was teaching there, and then in the meantime, 2 kids were born. And I had a house there in Springbok and a house here in Paarl. And it was a bit too expensive. So I thought, I'm going to leave teaching and do something else. So, having done woodwork, the transition over to carpentry was a bit easier for me. So I had to give notice, 3 months notice. So I had a friend there who's a contractor, from Tausera, not Tausera, Povana. So I asked him, listen, I'm going to leave the teaching, but I want to get used to the rougher carpentry work. Can I come work with you? I said, right. So each afternoon, when the school closed at 1:30, at 1:25, I really let my kids pack away. When the bell rang at 1:30, I was first out the gate. So then there's another guy staying near us. He came home for lunch. Because we was Springbok, where we stayed, was outside the town. And he was working in the town. And we were building in the town. So as he came home in the afternoon for lunch, I got on his kumbi and I went into town with him. So I taught there for 4 years, 5 years. And then I decided, no, I'm going to leave teaching. In that time, the wife had gone back to Cape Town with the children. And so I stayed there. And I resigned. The principal didn't want me to resign. He said this and this and this. Think about the money. But I didn't care much for the principal, because he was, I don't like teachers to worry with the children or the parents. And it so happened that the parents got very fond of me. And they were telling me nasty things about the principal. So I lost respect for him. So he said, why do you leave the teaching? Why this and this and that? I said, listen, Mr. Swanner, I'm going to earn in a fortnight what you get as a teacher, as the principal of the school. So I left there, came to Cape Town. So I went to work on the construction field. And I went to work for Marie and Stewart. I started with my brother-in-law. And we started Celtic Refinery. So I worked there for about 2 years. Then I went across the road to Clifford Harris. I worked there. And then here a friend of mine was working on a national road. And I said to him, Harold, I'm looking for another job. He says, all right, have you got your tools? I said, yes, tools. So I started the clubs on the road and worked there for about 3 months or so. Got experience in bridge building. There, I heard about the job in Wellington, an American firm doing pipeline. They just started a factory here in Wellington. So I came here in Wellington, looked for a job. I said, I have a job here. I worked there. They taught me construction of a factory. This is a pipeline, but they built the factory, and when the factory was completed, they made the pipes, and they laid the pipes. So they taught me construction as they required it. And when that was finished, they said, what are you going to do now? I said, how do you ask? Have you got another job for me? They said, you can stay on. So I stayed on. They told me the construction of the factory itself, the erection of all the machinery and how this worked and that worked. Now these Americans, they couldn't speak Afrikaans. So I got on quite well with them. And when I had the help to erect all machinery, they taught me all machinery in the factory, how to do this and that. And then they said, now you must train people. So I got blokes in, I taught them different machinery, and they put me in charge of training. So I worked there for about 3 years in Wellington. And they said to me that, listen, we've got another contract up in Bloemfontein. Would you like to go? No, he didn't ask you, would you like to go? He said, you must go to Bloemfontein next week. So I went there, outside Bloemfontein, and
Is it in the route to Harrismith?
yeah. So I went there, and outside Bloemfontein, the Wetsdorp,
The Wetsdorp, yes.
yeah, and there wasn't any colours there. They had to get a permit for me to be in the town. And I had to stay outside the town. We had the factory up there outside the town, and I had to stay there. And I got all people there, age of friends, mostly all black people working there. And I went visiting them weekends, but what else could I do? So I stayed there, put up the factory, and then when the factory was now up, I got owns from here from Wellington again, that I had trained to come down there, stay there, at the pipeline there. So I stayed there for about 3 years, and I got to know people in Bloemfontein. I met the principal of the school there. He offered me a room in his house that I can stay over the weekend. So he said, why don't you come teach again? Be a woodwork teacher, I need one. No, not the teacher again. Because you'll never be able to pay me what I'm earning now. So I stayed there for 3 years, and then they said we had another contract up in Swakopmund. I want you to go there. Namibia, start a factory there. Right? So I went up there, started a factory there. After 7 months, I got this whole factory running smoothly. Because I could go around now, get to know the town, But in the meantime, the wife and children, they don't stay in Paarl. They only came during the June holidays or so to visit me there. And then I stayed there in Swakopmund for about 7 months. Then he said, listen, we've got another contract up in Transvaal, in Bethel. I want you to go there. Right, so I came down there again, went to Bethel, and got to know people in Standerton and around about there. So I stayed there for about 4 years, a little more than 4 years. And then we completed this contract, and they didn't have any more work. So they went into voluntary liquidation. And the Americans that was with me, they were very disappointed us not having any more work. Because now they were living in luxury in South Africa, man. Now they had to go back to America. So they sold everything. Come on now. So I was without a job there. After 8 years with this company. So I went to Sasol, started as a carpenter again. Then I had to looking for a labor relations officer. Applied for the job, went for the interview, I got a job as a labor relations officer. And we were 2 coloreds there. We were doing the colored section of labor relations. And I had 3 black colleagues doing that section, and 2 white guys doing the labor relations. But they couldn't fire anyone without bringing them to labor relations. Now, the Buddha there, they were so used to chase you away, and it's finished and klar. Here they had to bring them to us, and we had to investigate. Is it fair? Is it not fair? And I and the other colored bloke from Joburg, he was a union guy. So we had to get the union side of things again. And so if we refused to sign any termination, they couldn't fire anybody. It's only when it was really, really bad that we signed. And so we didn't get on too well with these white guys. Because they asked me, Adams, hoe praat jy dan met die man? Ek sê, wat verkeerd? So, hy sê, soos jy gewoonte, jy praat so met Oosie. Hy sê, listen, dat ou sê toe, dis, kan ek wel ook, what not? So I said to the foreman, listen, whether you say to him, what not or not, it doesn't matter to me. But let me tell you, that I and this guy comes from the same place. And if you said, what not to us in town, Paarl, just so you're in your moeder geslaat. Anyhow, so I got on, and but then the Buddha, they had to get rid of me. Because I was, a needle in that place. And the other colored up, he got on well with the Buddha, but because he was drinking, and every night the guys were buying him dope to save the job. And I didn't do it like that. I never took, what do you call it?
Bribes.
Bribes for work. Never. Not once. It so happened that when I left there, I went to Cape Town, I went to back. I went to work for Ilcombs. I worked there about 4 years as a foreman there. And then I decided to go back to teaching. I went to Cape Town to headquarters there in Holland Street. And they were looking for a record. They got this black, what they call it, swart book. They looked through there, looked through another. And I said to them, I won't find my name there. Because you didn't fire me, I left. So I went. Then, 2 days later, I phoned my wife at her work and said I must come in to headquarters there. So I went there again and they found a little yellowish card. Because when I was in the first interview, they asked me, where did you teach? What was your number? I said, did I have a number? I was teaching in Springbok. And then, what bank did you mean? I said, there was only one bank there. That was the Standard Bank. Anyhow, we got this card and they found some record of my existence. Anyhow, but they had asked me to bring in a reference of what I've been doing in the meantime. I took that along. And they took this in there into another room and they came out. I said, no, there's no problem. The record is okay. You can go back to teaching anytime that you want to teach. I said, what about the money? I said, no, seeing that you've been doing training, we'll put you on maximum on this scale there. I said, and then? I said, then you have to go and study to earn more. So I went to a friend there in Paarl. He wasn't at home, but I told his wife where I've been up to. And so the next day when I came to the shop where my wife worked, she said, here's a phone number that you must phone. So I phoned this principal in Krafelton. And he said, it's okay, I can start on Monday. So I went to teach in Krafelton for about 3 months. There was only temporary. And then I got another post in Paarl. And a friend of mine, he was acting principal there. And he gave me a job. Because the principal had gone off sick. So I went there for 6 months. And then I taught English there. And after 6 months, he said, the principal is going to go on study leave. You want to stay on? So I stayed on for a whole year there. Then he said, you can stay another year. And then I went to this primary school, Paarl, and I had to go do some photocopying there, and the acting principal knew me very well. So I asked him, Ronnie, I see you've got a post advertised there. Is it genuine? He said, what do you ask? I said, because if you have somebody in the post, I'm not going to apply. He said, no, they've got a white lady here, but she's not so. She's Afrikaner. And she isn't quite fit to teach English. So she said, all right, put in. So I got that post there. And I stayed there for 19 years. And in the meantime, we acquired computers. And because I've done some computer work at home myself, and they gave me the job to start computers at that school. Computers from grade 1 up to grade, what we call standard 6. I only taught computer and English. So I was there for 19 years. But in the meantime, things had changed in Paarl, and I got into swimming. I was an instructor, and then I went to Johannesburg as a coach for the high school. And I got to this house because the high school children, they were staying with parents, whereas the primary school, we went and we stayed in a school with the kids. So I went visiting the high school because my daughter was then in high school and she was swimming with all that. I got into this guy's house, he looked at me, he looked twice, and he went to call his wife. And he asked his wife, do you know this man? She said, no. And so he said to her, you know this guy? He's the guy who saved my job at Cecil. Because I didn't remember him anymore. But you know, from that day on, his attitude towards my child changed for the better. Whenever I had to go and check up whether they are resting, they're not there. You've taken them out sightseeing in Johannesburg. And so I got on. I went with the primary schools. Each year with their swimming SA championships. And at the championships, we usually choose the day before tournament. We choose one of the coaches to be a referee for the tournament. And for 6 successive years, they chose me to be the referee at the tournament. Then the high school also asked me to go for tournaments with them as a coach. So I went like that. But then it came with this amalgamation of the codes, black and white swim together and all this. And I didn't fit in well with it because they were doing things quite different than what I have been taught. Because I qualified as an international coach in swimming. And they were round cuts, you know, shortcuts. Like for instance at the tournament they said to me, this is a new record. And now this is the first year that we are doing swimming together. So how can it be a record? Everything that is swum today is a record. Not that child has now broken a record. You can't break a record the first time. So from then on, I didn't get on well with the Buddha. And so eventually I went with them to the tournament just to see how they were doing things. It was different from ours. And they were doing shortcuts. So when we came after back from the tournament, there was a meeting and these guys that I went with, the whiteys, they outvoted me. and they voted somebody else who hasn't been on the tournament yet. So I said, what the hell with you guys? So I just went out of swimming. I still stayed at the school. I was in swimming, so in charge of swimming at the school, and I was assistant coach in soccer. And there also, and these people, the way they doing things together, they didn't suit me. Because when we were on our own, I was winning trophy under 12 knockout and league every year. Not that I was the best, that I admit, but because the black school, they were good. But the teachers, they weren't that good. They were neglecting the kids. This morning I phoned them. Is it okay for the match this afternoon? Then the principal said, no, the teacher isn't at school. So we couldn't play. This afternoon we played. They win. And I take my result sheets directly to the M&R. Their teacher, who won the match, never give results. So at the end of the year, they couldn't draw a winner. So I was the winner. Not because my kids were the best, but because of the excellence of the teachers. And so here I had to do something, so I just... And then my president of my union sport union, he also didn't suit me. You know, he was again putty with the ball. And so I asked him, listen, we pay capitation every year. What happened to the money? Why, if we play a union match, is there never jerseys? There's never a ball for us? We win the trophy, but there's no trophy. There's nothing else, no celebration for the children. So he said to me, you can't ask those big things in a meeting here. I said, why not? You're the president of this local union. You're also the president of the union. So you can give me the answer here now. No. So I said, okay, now let's do it from the shopper. That is, and then I stayed there for 19 years at that school and I left there. But I am a person and I can't get on with you, then I just leave you. Like I had a friend, I went with him every year to camp. And then all of a sudden, we don't go camping anymore. He had a pool at his house. And he went and spent at the pool. Then this year he let me know, I don't have to come to his house, the boat. So I asked his wife, what is going on? She said, no, he's getting friends. And so, all right, then I said, away. His friend was his brother-in-law that came there that day. So he didn't want me there. So I said, oh, that's you. And so it is with me, with people that I don't get on with them. I stay away. Don't go visit. Because I'm a rather difficult person to get along with. When things don't suit me. Not that they don't want to suit me always, but if I do it this way, then I need you to do it that way, and we do it together. That's how I built my friendship. But now, even my dog friends, they've all passed away. Like these two ladies that were here, the Pre and Solvents, they're my sisters-in-law. Those were my drinking buddies. They both passed away. All the people that I've drank, played rugby with, played soccer with, played cricket with, they all passed away. So I've got no friends. Anymore? No. Yeah. So, I think that should be.
So, did you ever tell your friends, I mean your children, about the history of their way, their grandfathers and so on? Like you said that the Adams were the descendants of slaves.
No, I never got a chance to talk to my. The second, I've got 6 children, eh? 3 boys and 3 girls. First 3 boys. The eldest is staying in New Zealand. The middle one is here. And the youngest is also in New Zealand. He is a dentist and the oldest one is a mechanic. And this one is a graphic artist. He is now in the private sector. And the middle one here, he was rather involved with the, what do you call it? The struggle. And when he got arrested, he told his mother, by that time I wasn't here in Paarl, I was there in the Transvaal. And his mother had to go to court down here. And he said to us, if you got involved in your days, it wouldn't have been necessary for me to be locked up today. So that was his attitude. And we never really spoke about our parents. And that's it. Yeah. But he supports me when I go to this Getgestig place. He comes there and he brings his family. But now Heidi is rather upset because there's no Jason Adams to carry on the family name. He has a son whose name is Louis Jason. But Heidi wants a Jason Adams. So it's only my grandchildren, my grandsons who can have a Jason Adams to carry on the family name as such. Yeah, but now the youngest one who is staying there in New Zealand, he was there last year, and his son came out there, and he was quite pleased and proud to go to that church and have photos taken there of his grandparents. You know, when I went to high school, we were the second group of matriculants at that school. And last year, we were 50 years. So, myself and a few friends that were with me in the trip, and one who was in the first group of matriculants, we went to the high school to arrange something. But there was no record of us. Even they were the first. There was nothing. So I said, surely there should be some register for those years, but there was nothing. So we couldn't arrange anything. No, so that was...
I think that's one of the problems of colored and African schools. They didn't take their record to the archives and so on.
Yeah.
As a result, we can trace, let's say, Ulsorong War School children of 1965.
Yeah.
Because that's Ulsorong War School was built in 1965. You can trace matriculants of that year. But you can't trace them in the African schools.
Yeah.
I don't understand because it was said that it's government keeping direct, but you can't find anything.
Yeah, there was no record.
So, Mr. Jason, what is it that you want to tell the future generation about yourself, about what happened in Paarl and your youth day? Maybe as a message to the future generation.
You know, my grandchildren, I can't tell them much. Because where they go to school is the white schools. You go there. All my grandchildren, yeah, they go to white schools. So yet they get indoctrinated by the whites. So how can I tell them now? The parents now are all teachers, and they go, you know what I can't take now? These people, they are qualified teachers. My one daughter teaches for about 20 years in Wellington as a pre-primary school there. But she sends her children to white school. My other daughter is a teacher. She is now an analyst for the education department. She sends her children to a white school. And this one was here, she's the pre. Her daughter is also a graduate, but she sends her child to white school. Don't they trust themselves to teach their own children? That is for me not so satisfying. Christian one. They earn the money in our schools to be able to finance their children in the white school. And even when I was teaching, there was teachers there that send the children to white schools. They said, jy verdien jou brood hierso. As jou kind kan nie skool gaan, jy moet daar skool gaan. And I did not agree with that. So what can I tell them? But what is keeping me in South Africa is the rand, the low value of the rand. My youngest son stays in New Zealand. He's there for now 12 years already. You know, I went there for a Christmas holiday, and when I retired, I went over there for 9 months. I stayed there with him. Ooh, it's a different country. So I'm saying the rand is keeping me here, otherwise I would have been gone long ago. But he never forgets us here, because the value of their dollar is so much more. Yeah, maybe Christmas, he looks after his sisters here and sends his presents. He's coming again. He was here last Christmas and he's coming again this year. He's a dentist there.
Hi, Mr. Adams, thanks you for your information. We appreciate it, and I'm sure the people will learn from your background. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.